Hey everyone, and welcome back. This is Terry with the podcast Digging Through Dominoes, where we look at those dominoes of our life, cast out the ones that have messed us up, and draw some new ones so we can have a better, brighter future. Today's guest is one of my favorite people in the world, Vanessa Grace of the podcast Soul Amplified. You are going to love her. And the conversation we had, I'm still going from it. It was freaking amazing. So, why don't we just jump right in? Hi, everyone. This is Terry, and I want you to welcome our fabulous guest, my friend, Vanessa Grace. She's amazing. She is a former therapist, and get this, I hope you love this term as much as I do, a radiance coach. I think that's so amazing, Vanessa. I love that term. I've never heard it until I saw it on your Instagram.
Well, that's because I made it up.
That's the way that's the best. That's the way things happen.
Yeah. So you said I was a former therapist,
Mhm.
truth, but I was also a codependency coach for a while, and while I was a therapist, but then also after I was a therapist. And then we go through periods of evolution. And I was going through this period of evolution where I'm still very passionate about educating about codependency, but it didn't feel aligned with where I was in my life and what I felt I was supposed to be doing with my business.
Mhm.
And so I was in this period of kind of not knowing what I was doing. And I had been doing a lot of inner work with the divine feminine
Mhm.
and understanding the female menstrual cycle and all of the different phases of it and a lot of other things.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things with the divine feminine is that if you're really engaging with the divine feminine and living in that way, when you are feeling optimal, you feel radiant as a feminine person. And
Mhm.
so I was like, I want to be that radiance for myself, but also for other people as an example of stepping into their divine feminine. And there's so many people who are craving the feminine, whether they're somewhere on the queer spectrum, whatever that self-defined way is,
Right.
or identify as cis straight female.
Mhm.
There's so many people that are craving the divine feminine, and I'm just another one of the people that's bringing it to the world. And I had actually written down on a piece of paper and put it on my desk, like, wouldn't it be cool if I could call myself a radiance coach?
Mhm.
But I thought, oh, I can't call myself that. I don't feel radiant all the time. I don't know enough.
But you
I'm
are
all
radiant.
self-taught. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm self-taught. I just read a lot of books and practice it myself, but I've never actually like gone to another person who knows things. Who am I to call myself a radiance coach? But then something happened inside of me and I thought, who am I not to just claim that for myself?
Right.
Why can't I just call myself a radiance coach? And I was like, bitch, get it. Basically,
I love it. I love it.
I just was like almost like proving to myself that I knew what a radiance coach was. And I was like, well, what do I think that is? And I started writing it down to just answer my own question. And I ended up writing like 3 pages front and back. And I was like, oh, apparently I do know what I think a radiance coach
Right.
is and what in the world I would do with people
Right.
to help them with their own radiance and their own divine feminine. So I think I got this.
That's so true. It's so many of us don't know ourselves because of things we've been through. And so
Yes.
we take on the labels that other people have given us. And I think what you did when you wrote that down and then it just flowed freely,
Yeah.
bing, you got it.
Yeah.
I bet you're the only one in the world.
I actually am not because, of
Really?
course, while I was pondering it, I did a little Instagram hashtag search, and there is like one or two other people out there that have used that hashtag,
Uh-huh.
but literally I only found a couple other people. And it's not that other people aren't also doing things in the realm of divine feminine and women's learning about women's cycles and everything. But yeah, there weren't a lot of people who were calling themselves a radiance coach. So it does feel pretty cool to just have come up with it and have it feel so good.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I
Yep.
love it. Just every
Self-invention.
time I see it on Facebook, not on Facebook, on Instagram, it's just such a inspiring. It feels like I feel this may be really stupid, but when I went to Rose Festival, I loved the midway part, the carnival rides and the city
Yeah.
fair. I like the electric charge of all of the different lights and the sounds and just the vibe.
Yes.
So that's
It
sort of what
sounds
I feel like for me.
mm, it sounds like life is flowing through you, and there's a lot of
Mm.
positivity and bliss and joy in that moment.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's what Radiance does feel like in, like, the positive end of the spectrum of it.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, and this may be
Mhm.
really dumb. So I bought a motorcycle. I bought my first motorcycle in 2005. I got my second big one in 2006. And I loved riding so much. Let's see, how old would I have been? I was 44. And I've wondered this when I see your Instagram posts. I went to my gynecologist, who happened to be a very good friend of ours. I'm like, oh, it hurt. It hurt. This is so terrible. I hate this because I didn't want my motorcycle trips interrupted. Can I, it hurt. Can I please have a hysterectomy, please? He's like, okay, I'm going to put it down, but I know what you're doing. So do I still count?
Because did you have the surgery?
Uh huh. A partial
Yes.
hyst.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you mean do you still count as being in your divine feminine?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Because
So,
yeah, go ahead.
um, divine feminine is an energy, and then the counterpart to that is the divine masculine,
Hmm.
but these energies aren't necessarily male and female. They just tend to, like, people born with wombs and uteruses tend to have a core essence that is feminine, the
Hmm.
feminine energy, and people born with testes and penises tend to have alignment with masculine energy as their core essence,
Hmm.
but we have both of them inside of us.
Right.
And core essence is relevant and important because that's the energy that you feel restored when you're in that vibe,
Hmm.
and you feel replenished and refilled. But having the hysterectomy surgery doesn't, like, make you a eunuch or something.
Okay.
It's really about what you're embodying. It could create a feeling of disconnection with one's body because part of the feminine genitalia organs are missing. But that's an individual experience. For some people, it could be very empowering. But in all honesty, I haven't had a lot of conversations with women who have had hysterectomies, and we're specifically talking about that. So it's
Hmm.
not like I have a wide array of people that I've talked to speak to about it. And
Where's
I
me?
still have my uterus, so,
Right.
like, I don't have a personal experience with that.
Okay.
But no, if you're definitely still can access the divine feminine, um, and be feminine.
Well, I think I'm pretty much on the feminine scale of things,
Yeah.
and I love the feminine feel and the elegance and the grace and the radiance and the I love all of that. But I have to tell you, my hysterectomy for me was so empowering for a couple of reasons. One, I was free to ride my motorcycle wherever I wanted, whenever I wanted, which was a huge form of therapy for me. Made me feel
Mhm.
free. It gave me this peace I've never felt before.
Mm.
And since I had adopted and raised so many kids, I was having nightmares about getting pregnant.
Mm. Wow.
And it was horrible. And I mean, it was to the point I love little toddlers. We have a precious toddler across the street, but I would think, "Oh my god, I am so glad that kid's not mine,"
Mhm.
because of everything, which is a story in itself.
Mhm.
But
Well,
it
yeah,
was
we
so
talked about it a little bit.
freeing to not have that overwhelming fear and
Mhm.
also the feeling of being stuck. So for me, it was the right move. So
It's
I'm glad I still
important to
count.
know why it's important to you or, not important to you whenever you're having a gynecological experience, or there might be a surgery that's an option.
Mhm.
Um, when I speak to people, I mean, sometimes there's not a lot of options given. It's like, well, this is the only medical option that we have for
Right.
whatever the circumstances. But if a person is willing to venture into alternative medicine or venture into what is it called? Functional medicine,
Mhm.
there can be like a wider variety of options.
Right.
I'm really into looking at the variety of options because they've certainly helped me in my life.
Mhm.
And there's actually more education, I feel like, that happens. Like, I learned a lot more about the female body from looking at alternative medicine than Western medicine was ever able to teach me.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
I'm fortunate in that most of my doctors don't r they don't really follow Western medicine.
interesting.
Most of their philosophies and their treatments come from Eastern medicines and European studies, which are not for profit the way that
Yeah,
we are
they're
in
not done.
America. We don't have big pharma hanging over it. So I feel that I've gotten the best of both, but when I went in and spoke to my primary about HRT, purely for vanity reasons, she referred me to a naturopath because she didn't deal with that. And I thought, well, that kind of sucks, but in reality it didn't.
Yeah.
It was good. It's just who you've got to find the right specialist. So
I'm
tell me
glad that
more
she
about I'm sorry?
I'm glad that she referred you to somebody
Yes.
that was like that you had a good referral. That's important.
It's so important. I remember one of my doctors, I went in, I had this problem with my knee, is I had been seeing him for 25 years. We had a great relationship, great friendship. And I went in, I had this torn ligament. And the first thing he said to me, instead of referring me to someone, was, "What do you want me to do? Cut it off?" Like,
Wow.
bye. I don't care if you're
Yeah.
having a bad day, but we have this 25-year relationship that's been pretty good. I'm leaving. So
Yeah.
I and no referral, nothing. So I ended up finding him, having that taken care of. But
Yeah.
yeah, referrals are so important. And I really appreciate people that say, you know what? That's not my expertise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you
I think it
read?
takes a lot of professionalism and self-knowledge and putting your ego aside to be able to say that.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does. Have you read the book The Myth of Normal by Gabor Mate?
No, but now I'm writing it down. I think I've heard of it.
Oh my gosh. It speaks a lot of how the illnesses and the problems that people are experiencing today lie in our traumas, our stress, our past, our childhoods. He's speaking, and I'm thinking, I'm going to make my doctor read this. I won't have to make her, she'll do it, but it is
I
amazing.
Yes, I am into all of that. Um, both from like a spiritual perspective and from a a, a therapist perspective, because there's like research
Yeah.
that supports all of that. And there's more and more and more of that research that's
Mhm.
being supported, even though some of it is young. But I read a book called It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolynn, and I'm
Mhm.
obsessed with this book and have taken his training. But it is about inherited family trauma, inherited because trauma changes a person's DNA, like turning light switches on and off.
Yes.
And then, and that's probably similar to what the Myth of Normal author is speaking about. And then when that DNA gets turned on or off or whatever, that can get inherited by the children that you make. And
Mhm.
then those DNA stay turned on or off, but they can be like PTSD or medical symptoms that that person never experienced the stuff that caused it. So now they're running around with criteria that diagnose them with the mental health condition that they don't know the effing story because they didn't live it.
Right, exactly. Exactly, exactly.
Yes.
And,
And
I
it's like,
have
"Oh my gosh, this is life changing. Everyone go Google epigenetics because that's what it's called."
yes,
It's I know a lot about it in terms of psychology and everything, human development, because that's my specialty. But there is a lot of information out there on it in terms of nutrition and, people's health and weight and body. And so but I don't know as much about that,
right.
but there's a ton of information out there on it.
Oh my
But
god.
it's, in its infancy, and so not everyone knows it exists.
Right, a lot of it's pre-verbal. You don't know
Yes.
these things are happening, and so a lot of doctors are like, "How could you be affected by something that you didn't even know was happening before you could even speak? Because we don't form
Well,
memories until such and such age." Bullshit.
right, there's a whole I can't remember what it's called, but there's a whole form of memory that does happen between, like, conception or
Mhm.
birth, whatever marker you wanna use, and when memories start to be formed, which is somewhere between 2 and 5, and it's actually more precise than that, but I can't remember right now because I haven't looked at the information lately. And it's called, I believe, implicit memory, and your nervous system remembers. There's a
Yes,
place in your brain, your middle brain, that remembers. I think it's the amygdala.
the
I might be wrong.
amygdala.
I'm not a super brain person, but
I think Bessel
there are
van
parts.
der Kolk speaks of that a lot.
Yes. And that stuff stays in you even though you don't have like a memory recall with all of the senses, but your nervous system remembers it. And so it reacts to it as if you have a memory. It's
Right.
legit and real.
Right. It is, and I mean, so many are I'm glad that it's becoming more mainstream. I have
Yeah.
had I don't know what else to say other than I guess maladies my entire life. And the more I delved into a world where trauma continued, the more problems I would have.
Mhm. Well, you were just being activated left and right. Your
Yes.
nervous system was always being activated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Continually. Huh.
From current things, and then those current things were activating old things, but they were probably activating multiple old things.
Uh-huh.
So it's like multiple trauma responses all at the same time,
Right.
continuously happening together.
Yeah,
Yay!
yeah, I know. It's like
Sarcasm,
so
obviously.
freaking great.
I
Yeah,
know.
there was one line in his book that I loved, and it was something along the lines of, "Trauma is not the incident that happened. Trauma is
Mm.
what happens to you when the incident happened,
Mhm.
and that stays with you," and so many people are like, "Just get over it already." Really?
You know, the best way to get over something is for the people around you, and this is usually the adults in your life when you're a kid. The
Mhm.
best way to get over something is for those people who are supposed to be caring for you to be loving and caring to you before, during, and after the incident occurred.
Exactly.
But oftentimes, if you're experiencing it in childhood, those are the people that are inflicting it. Those are the people that are making you be silent about it. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes one person is perpetuating the harm, but the other person is perpetuating the idea that you have to be silent and never speak up and keep the family secret. And so, in fact, both people are perpetuating violence in different ways.
Right. And
And so, people who overcome adulthood trauma quicker have those experiences of when something tough happens to them in childhood, they were loved, cared for, seen, heard before, during, and after a traumatic incident.
Mhm.
And then they have an easier time in adulthood because their body and nervous system know how to process it.
Right.
Yeah.
What's interesting is when I look at both sides of my family, there's a lot of the same things happening. There's a lot of alcoholism, there was a lot of drug addiction, there was a lot of the same things. One side of my family was very open about it and very helpful to my cousins that had were afflicted with these things. The other side of my family was, "Oh, don't tell anyone.
Mhm.
This is just gonna be our secret. Don't tell your dad." and it just perpetuates, it just goes further and further and further
Mhm.
and further down the line, and I watched that happen, and it's
Yeah.
I know it happened with me and my kids. I didn't even know I had trauma until I broke, and then even after that, it was that was 2008, and it was probably a good 8 years before I really delved into my childhood
Mhm.
and what had gone on, and memories and boxes started opening. But I wanna
Yeah.
get back to the divine feminine because I think it's
Okay.
so
I have a
interesting.
quick question for you, and then we'll go
Yeah,
back to the divine feminine.
yeah.
Do you know what the ACEs study is?
I'm a 9.
ACES? What? You're a 9?
I'm a
Yeah.
9.
Does your audience know what the ACEs study is?
No, why don't you fill them in?
Yes, because it would be good. So everybody, you can Google this real easily to find out what your score is and what the history of this quick quiz is, because it's actually a really fascinating accident that I would like to believe had divine intervention.
Mhm,
But basically, you can take this quiz that asks a series of 10 very simple
mhm,
questions, and it's an indication of how much trauma you have before you were 18. And you get 1 point for each one that you answer yes to. And the more you answer yes to, the more trauma you have. And each question is, did this ever happen? It's not how many times it's happened or whatever. And oftentimes people don't realize that some of the things in this list of questions are even traumatic. And so when I was a therapist and when I was, you know, well, okay, social worker, then therapist, then life coach, I would use this quiz and people would be like, I didn't even realize that was trauma. And then I would have to support them in realizing that was trauma. And so, if you take the quiz, just maybe have some support around you, but it
mhm.
could also be really enlightening.
It
I've
is.
found it to be profound for people.
There was one question that I would've I scored myself as an 8, and then going through and speaking to my therapist about it, it came to the question about having a parent incarcerated.
Mhm.
Well, I did not have a parent incarcerated, but I had a parent who was physically unavailable and was gone for long amounts of time because of
Mm,
his
mhm.
job, and so they have they upped my score 1 because of my dad's job. It wasn't something that, um so it's maybe I should be 8.5, but it's like a soft 9.
Right. So, like, some of the things that would be considered traumatic about having a parent incarcerated aren't there, but then some of them are.
Right.
Yeah. So you got part of it, but not all of it.
Mhm.
I think that's a really good awareness. And people could do that with every single question. Well, I have part of this, but not all of it. So that's an awareness for myself.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, and I have like I said before, I have actually 2 cousins that are battling the same thing right now, both on separate sides of the family, and one of them asked me the other day if I knew anything about their childhood. Of course I did. "Well, what do you know?" And there were several specific incidents that I remembered, and so I let this cousin know, and then I felt horrible. Here I am, like, w family secrets are so damn strong.
Yeah.
After I told him, I'm thinking, "Was I wrong in telling him that? He asked the
Hmm.
question,
Yeah.
or did I make it worse? I'm gonna be
The
damned to hell
conditioning
by his parents, but that's okay." Um,
the conditioning to keep everything quiet is so deep because there's this belief that if we keep it quiet then it didn't happen and there's no impact of it, but that's all bullshit because our body remembers everything that ever happened to us.
mhm.
Our body remembers what the house felt like even if things were happening in other rooms.
Smell.
We know what things feel like, the vibe,
Mhm,
especially if someone is an empath, they experience things more intensely,
mhm,
sensations. And so you could experience these sensations in your body and not know why they're there and think you're crazy. But then someone tells you a story about your life and it feels true in your body, and suddenly you're calm now because there's a story that goes with the feelings that you're having, and maybe you thought you were
Oh.
inventing them, but now you know you're not full of shit.
Yeah, and I think one thing that started it off is this cousin was saying, "I'm just a fuck up. I'm a nothing. I'm stupid. I'm retarded." And he just kept going on with this list of what a mistake he was in the universe. And it broke my heart because I've
Mm,
been there and I was old enough to see a lot of things happen. And there were a lot of unknowns, but it's like I wanted to be reassuring. And then afterwards, that family secret bear trap just sprung around me again.
that's the best description I have ever heard of family secrets ever. I love it. Family secret bear trap.
Yeah,
There's so much guilt and shame that comes with breaking it. It's like you violated your family.
right.
Yeah.
When in fact, I was trying to say, hey, you have a reason to feel this way. You were made to feel that way the entire time I saw you growing up.
Yeah. Someone put this on you. It's not actually something that originated from within you,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Exactly.
not from you. It's not originating from you. It came from somewhere else. It came from their problems and their inability to
Right.
see the beauty of who you are.
Right.
They had their own, it's like I like to say that people have their own light blocked, usually due to their own trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so until someone like susses it all out and figures out how to love other people in their family, then the next generation can keep experiencing that difficulty.
Right. Because if we don't know what the heck's going on, we can't fix it while we're raising our kids.
Right.
And so it really sucks to be aware of this at 61 years old. And I've got all these kids I've raised that I'm thinking, oh crap. And all I can do is hope and pray that they can get it figured out on their own. Two of them have. Two of them are doing so, so well.
That's
It's
wonderful.
unbelievable. And these are two of my kids that we adopted. One of them was 6, and she's really dealt well with her stuff. And my other
Mm,
son was a newborn, and
mm-hmm.
we never really felt that there was anything missing in his life. And I don't think we had the chance to meet his 4 of his 5 biological sisters, half sisters, and the mother of 3 of them. And what I saw change in him was he just felt more grounded. He said, "There are
Mm-hmm.
people that look like me, just
Yeah.
exactly like me, mom." He said, "But
Yeah.
you're still my mom." And that, I think as an adoptive parent is really scary that you're gonna,
Mm,
lose your child in a it's hard. It's hard, but for him to say that
yeah.
and just say that he just felt more grounded. His family was just enlarged.
Yes. And there's things that adopted children need to know,
Mhm.
that only birth families, genetic families can clarify for them.
Right.
And just seeing that there were people that looked like him gave him a lot of peace, it sounds like.
It really did, and it all started by accident. Well, not really accident. He came down one night. We're eating dinner, and he was 27. He said, "Mom, I'm having these symptoms, and I'm trying to keep my calm mom face on while my inner mom is screaming because I knew they were symptoms of colon cancer."
Hmm.
And at that moment, I knew I had to find his birth father. And a quick Google search led me to his birth father's obituary.
Oh gosh.
And his widow's name was listed. So I made that very, I made a decision right then because of the life of my son to make a very awkward Facebook message to her. I made
Mhm.
sure his picture was out front. And I mean, how do you say, I'm raising a son you may not know your husband had, but I really need medical information? And it
Mhm.
turns out his birth father went in for his first colonoscopy at the age of 50, and he already had cancer, colon cancer that could not be removed.
Oh my gosh.
and Michael was just 27. So now we have his widow and I have such an incredible relationship, and
Mm,
he has a great relationship with his sisters. And it it's how tragedy, sometimes tragedies, out of tragedies can come the most incredible things if you are willing to take that step into the unknown and into the fearful and just let it happen, if that made sense.
yeah, I mean, a lot of amazing things can happen if you just, this feels right. I'm also scared of it. I
Right.
want to try it out. I mean,
Mhm.
there's real specific reasons for you, but even in other situations, um, just that bravery of like, I want to try something new, or I need to find out this information.
Mhm.
There's a lot of good that can come from the other side, even if you fall flat on your face. And
Right.
it doesn't like quote unquote work out the way you thought. I do stuff where I fall flat on my face like every week. I feel like I'm always learning.
We're toddlers forever.
That's yes, weird. That's a great way to put it.
And it's I saw this the other day. Someone was talking about trauma, and they compared it to baby steps. And they were speaking of how baby steps are not little tiny steps. They are brave, they are forceful, and they are curious, and they are pushing and persevering. Sorry.
You got it.
They're very giant steps. They're not these little bitty teeny things that society thinks that they are. Because toddlers, I mean, you have to be brave or you're not going to walk.
Hmm.
Or-
I mean, I can think of tiny steps that I've taken that felt like I was jumping across the chasm.
Yes.
And now, in retrospect, when I look back, they don't seem as big to me, but
Hmm.
that's because of all of the good things that have come and all the growth that has come since doing them. That now taking that step would be like a natural routine for me.
Right.
But at the time, even though it wasn't a big thing to do, like if you're just looking at me, it felt huge inside.
Right.
But that's because we're breaking out of our own um I don't want to use the word cage, but that's the one that's coming to mind. But we're like breaking out of our own patterns and our
Right.
own thought patterns and our own like repeated behavior. Anyway,
A
yeah,
box that we've been put in or we've put ourselves into.
exactly. Yeah.
It reminds me of another line from that book, The Myth of Normal. Gabor Mate says that trauma is like a scar that you have to break through. And that just, maybe because it's just
Mm,
fresh on my mind that I keep, I mean, people will say things, it's like, oh my gosh, that's in that book. But you're right. I mean, it's
yeah.
like
I
this huge
mean,
box, and I don't want to
when
let it
there's the
become,
intersection of like a book that really speaks to you and then other life experiences, it just, yeah, it just sticks.
yeah, yes. You know what? I wrote down this book that you were speaking of. It doesn't start with me. And as I was writing it, I stopped and thought, I think I've got that in my library.
It's actually called It Didn't Start With You, just a little bit different than that.
Oh, that's right.
It's
That's
got
what
an
I have written down. It didn't start with you.
and it's got an orange spine, so you can quickly find it on your bookshelf.
Well, most of mine are audio because my attention span is that of a
Oh,
gnat.
okay. I like I like books you can hold, hence
I do
my little
both.
bookshelf back here.
Yeah, that's a great thing. I like to do both. I'll listen because if I just read, I can't remember what I just read. But if I
Oh, okay,
listen
you have
to
to
it,
hear it.
yeah, and if I'm listening to it and reading it and I can mark as I go, that's the best way for me to retain it. So I have just ordered actually it got Gabor Mate's book, the hard copy just got here. So I'm going to order this
Nice.
other one too. So
It's good that you know your learning style so that you can give it to yourself. Not
yeah.
everyone knows their learning style. Yeah.
Well, mine has gotten worse through the years. Trauma,
Oh, okay.
it's weird. Um, Trauma, I don't know if it's trauma or if it's aphasia or
I don't
something.
know. But
Um,
trauma does affect our ability to, like, process information, and
mhm.
it affects our fuzziness and concentration, and I think I just said the same thing twice, but
That's
yeah,
okay.
it affects things.
It does. I've noticed I have something that's if it's not dyslexia, it's pretty damn close, especially when
Okay.
I'm typing or I'm writing. It's like, "Terry, wait, that's not the way that's spelled."
Yeah,
But and then it's hard to get the letters in place.
got it.
So it's weird. I
Hmm.
need to just check into John Hopkins and have, like, a clear glass room where they can study me with microscopes.
That sounds pretty dramatic. I think there's probably some other interventions that could happen first,
Well, for the
but I
benefit of
suspect that
mankind.
you're dramatic.
Yeah. Oh, well, Greece was great. Greece was very therapeutic for my birthday. It was very serene, and it just affected my life. I was gone for 10 days in ways I could have never thought it would have affected me.
Wow.
Yeah. It was so amazing. It was so amazing, and the things that the staff did for my birthday was which have sucked. One of them arranged a surprise fireworks display.
What?
Yes, we're sitting, at the Caldera in Santorini, and all of a sudden fireworks start going off, and I've got this video, or recorded, and I'm trying to get a video up of this, and it's just they were stunning, the most you couldn't see fireworks like this in America. They were just absolutely stunning, and I could hear my girlfriend said something to the waiter, and he said, "No, we did it for her birthday. We want to give her smile back."
Oh my gosh.
So now my heart is in Greece.
Yeah,
I'm going to learn
that's
Greek. I've
amazing.
started learning Greek, and I'm looking for property. Whether or not that comes to fruition, we'll see.
That's
But
exciting, just
I just
following your heart like that.
something else, I had read that as you age, one of the reasons that time seems to go more quickly is that you're stuck doing the same thing all the time.
Oh, that's an interesting theory I've not heard before.
I thought that was really interesting because it's like, "Oh my gosh, where did this year go?" But since I got back from Greece, time seems to have reversed. It's slowing down.
Oh.
I don't know if it was the lifestyle, if it was the break in what I was doing, if it was going with my girlfriend alone and braving Europe, which neither of us, had done. And it was, or the people, or if it was, just the whole combination of everything, or doing something for myself on my birthday
Yeah.
and celebrating me.
I mean, it sounds like it could be all of that together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a big old pot of stew.
And that just it makes me think of this other thing I like to point out and just share with people is that, like, when you're in a change process or you're desiring something, just keep doing the new thing that you're thinking of or the
Mhm.
new thing that grabs your attention, and eventually the transition will happen because you'll have added enough things to the pot of stew. Yours was really sudden because you went, like, on this vacation,
Right.
um and you could, like, see the difference. But if we just keep adding to make our life the way that we want it, and of course that means subtracting as well, what's not true anymore for us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, this all started on my 60th birthday, and I thought, I'm done with this. I know it sounds really stupid and it's the 5-year-old kid in me, but I'm done with just a card. I'm done with it. Just a card and then go mow the grass and, whatever. So I'm going to
I think that's
celebrate
fair.
myself each year. So from now
Do it.
on, I'm doing solo birthdays abroad. And
Yeah.
I'm starting to do more and more solo travel. I went to Washington, D.C., Leavenworth Christmas Village, which is so awesome. I've
Oh,
got
I
some
bet that was
trips
great.
scheduled for this year, and I'm already planning my birthday next year. So,
Oh, look at you.
yeah, I'm Ms. Globetrotter. Well, I can't really
I
say
like
that
it.
yet.
You will be.
I will be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. and I'm gonna have to take that divine radiance with me. Explain some
Yes.
more about that because it just sounds so beautiful.
Yes. So the divine feminine is okay. So I have to always say it in comparison to divine masculine.
Mhm,
Divine masculine, that energy is about not just people, but also things and the way things are. Both of them are not just people oriented, they're about like everything on earth. So the masculine is very linear, it's very goal oriented, it pushes through. It likes living on the edge, it likes seeing how far it can go, it likes danger.
mhm,
The feminine is not interested in going in a straight line. The feminine is going to go in a spiral, she's going to go in a circle. She's interested in a lot of feeling things.
mhm.
Um, there can also be this increased connection with the divine. Not that the divine masculine doesn't have a connection, but they're just different from each other. And so the divine feminine can connect into the divine and maybe get like this masterful idea just like kind of in this big chunk and have been playing all day and then get this great idea and then go implement it. um but she gets the great idea because she was having such a good time. She was doing things that fill her up. The feminine wants to be filled,
Yes,
the masculine wants to be emptied. So if
yes.
you think about design, the more masculine designs are like minimalist, and the
Mhm.
feminine designs tend to be more full of objects. There tends to be more layers of things in a feminine designed room.
And I'm looking around my
I
studio.
know, my room is like, I want layers, I want all the things,
I
blah, blah,
do.
blah.
And, you know,
You
I'm
know, if you look in maybe a desk drawer of a masculine person, it's probably there's nothing in there or three things in there and it's very organized.
I want
And
a
then if
junk
you look,
drawer.
what?
I like junk drawers.
Oh my gosh, you should see the junk drawer in my kitchen. And then if you open a feminine drawer, there's like a bunch of stuff in there and it might not even be organized. It's just looking like it can look like chaos. It can be organized, but it's just there's a bunch of stuff in there because of that desire to be full. And then other differences are the feminine needs to be cherished.
Mhm,
Ultimately, that's the ultimate need of the divine feminine.
mhm,
And then the masculine needs to be respected.
mhm,
And if a child is not given what they need, if that's if a small child is not cherished but they need to be cherished, then they can go searching for being cherished in all these really destructive ways. One of them is codependency, so I know about all of that because I was codependent. That's why I became a codependency coach once I worked through that.
mhm,
um, and then another aspect of not being cherished is maybe having eating problems, eating too much, eating too little, eating for the desire to be full spiritually or emotionally. It
mhm.
has nothing to do with, I'm hungry right now. There's all of that concept. And I wouldn't say that I'm a specialist in that at all, but it's there. And so there's so many things and behaviors that when you're not cherished and you're trying to get cherished, you can engage in attention seeking behavior. And all of that stuff that I just listed is actually the wounded feminine. But there's also the wounded masculine, where if you're not respected, you can start projecting a lot of anger and blaming other people when things don't go right. The divine masculine, if they mess up, they just say they messed up and they own it. The wounded masculine is going to point it at everybody else.
Right.
And so these two energies have very, very different ways of existing in the world. But in one moment, you can be in your divine masculine. And then the next moment, you could switch into wounded masculine and then be in your divine feminine and then be in your wounded feminine. So you can switch it throughout them throughout. Wow, you can switch through all of them throughout the day. There's a lot of throughs in that.
Mhm.
But there's kind of one that is maybe more prominent in your life, and there needs to be healing done if it's the wounded ones
Right.
to bring you back to your core essence. And so part of that means figuring out your core essence. And if you're putting on one of the other ones as a mask,
Mhm.
and of course, masks in psychology are all like figuring out, is this really me? And that can be a lot of layers. And
Right.
there's usually a lot of trauma involved if you're in one of the wounded ones
Mhm.
for wounded masculine or wounded feminine. Um,
Right.
the feminine can just kind of get caught up in her own mind and be spinning
Mhm.
between choices and not really knowing what to do. But the grounding energy of the masculine, the divine masculine, can help ground the feminine and give her like an orientation space and like, okay, what do you actually want? Not that the divine masculine tells the feminine what she wants. He grounds her enough and makes her feel safe enough because the masculine also helps the feminine feel safe and protected. And then he helps her figure out what she wants when she's centered, and then she can choose it. But then if she can't figure out what she wants after all of that, then she can say, I would like your advice.
Right.
And then he can give it. But the masculine isn't supposed to just be like shoving it, onto her, like, this is what I think you want, blah, blah, blah. She has to be listened to first. She has to express all of her feelings, and then she can figure out what she wants.
And
So,
that
and
doesn't
that's,
happen often.
I mean, you have to be with a person who's in their divine masculine to experience that.
Mhm.
And so that requires being with someone who's done their own personal work. And
Right.
someone can be in their divine masculine or their divine feminine and never have heard of these things, or have different ways of describing them, and be in that essence and not know that there's a description of it. But it does mean they have to have done their work.
Wow. Wow, wow.
Yeah.
One
So
thing
that's like a scattershot snapshot of what the kind of whole masculine feminine system is.
it makes sense because I see it, I feel it, I live it,
Yeah.
and this may be a weird comparison, but as you were speaking of it in the beginning, I'm thinking my mind went to architects that we work with.
Mm,
The male
interesting.
architects are very minimalist, very edgy in a not I don't know, edgy may be the wrong word, but more minimalist, contemporary. The female architects are much more cozy,
Mhm.
not really always traditional, but there's just such a different feel and the vibe of the building that they're designing.
Mhm.
So my mind just, since that's what we do, I mean, that just went to architects that I know. And I can say without a doubt, each of the male and female architects fit in those categories you just described.
I love that that's where you gravitated to and were able to see that, just an example in your everyday life, because that just confirms that, like, oh, this makes sense. And it makes sense in so many people's lives when they hear about it, but it's just a lens that we don't know exists. But more and more people are talking about divine masculine and divine feminine. And I think it's really helpful to see how much of a masculine world we live in,
Mhm.
not patriarchy
Right.
masculine or men, like cisgender men being in charge. While all of that is true, I'm not discounting that. I'm saying the energy of masculine.
Mhm.
And some of it is wounded masculine,
Yeah.
not divine masculine. I actually think that most of the parts of the patriarchy that people hate are actually wounded masculine. And when
I
you've
can
been
see that.
raised in a world that's led by the wounded masculine, it's really hard to trust divine masculine because how in the world could it be different? It's still masculine.
Right.
So there can be this distrust of that other version of masculine because there's this suspicion of it.
So you may have answered this and I just was like spacing, but
No,
in
that's
the
okay.
wounded masculine is do you see black and white thinking? Would that be sort, or is
Um,
that
that could be there, but I'm going to be transparent and let everyone know that I know the least about the wounded masculine of all of the four things that I just mentioned.
right?
I know less about the masculine side because it's not what I'm teaching. So
Right.
I'm gonna say, like, that makes sense to me. It could be there, but look at other resources too.
Mhm.
Because you could just Google or hashtag divine masculine and find teachers on it,
Oh,
or
okay.
divine feminine and find teachers on it. Because there's other people out there who are talking about this too.
Wow. I mean, I feel like I've been in a cave because I've not heard the term until speaking with you and watching your posts.
Well, somebody that I originally, excuse me, learned about it from, is someone that I coached with them. Like, I was their client, and his name is Ryan Yakomi, and his wife's name is Chris Britton, and they have a big old business together where they teach about divine masculine and feminine. And so if you want to know more about divine masculine, you can go to Ryan Yakomi. He's got, I don't know, all he's got Instagram and websites and things,
How do you
to
spell
find out
his
more.
last
But
name?
there's also other people out there who teach it. You just have to find the right pocket, and
Right.
then suddenly it's like whoosh, it's all there.
Right. How do you spell Ryan's last name?
Yokome.
Okay.
And I don't remember if when they got married, if Chris took his last name or not. That's irrelevant. It's just my own inner thought being shared with the
Right.
world.
I'll find it. I'll link them in the show notes.
Yeah.
And this, I think, do you ever have anyone with a misconception when you speak of this thinking, oh, you're getting real new agey with me? Because to me, it just sounds, it's like a name that more adequately describes life and the way we deal with it instead of new age mystical sitting on a rock zen.
Mhm. So actually, to be totally transparent, I would consider myself a person that would be called new aged because
Mhm.
I am mystical, and so a lot of the people that I speak to are that or are interested in that.
Mhm.
But I also believe that divine masculine and feminine can be spoken about in a way that people who aren't into anything woo woo or spiritual can also understand it,
Okay.
because it can be described as a concept and then people do get it.
Right.
So I don't get what you're talking about a lot. I don't receive that from people because my audience is mostly people who are mystics.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering from the other side. I mean, just if it would, because to me the way you explain it, it is life.
Yes.
It's just life. It's not carrying around a bag of crystals and howling at the moon. It's
No, you don't
Look,
need to
a
be
lot of
doing any of
people
that.
think that when you start getting, terminologies that they're not familiar with,
Yes.
and they totally dismiss it when it is actually life.
Yes.
Wow.
So, just one example of some information that's more scientifically based that I feel like lines up
Mhm.
with what I'm talking about. So, if you look at the male hormones in the male body, people that are gendered male at birth based on their genitalia, there's other markers for gender, but that's the one I'm talking about right now. Um, there is steady hormones that happen every single day. And so every day in the hormonal body of a gendered male tends to be the same. The female body has hormones that change several times throughout the month. Different hormones are dominant literally every single few days.
Mhm.
And so there's actually a female that was assigned female at birth because of their genitalia. Um, there tends to be 4 different phases of what the hormones are like, and there's, like, maybe 5 hormones off the top of my head, and I'm not a scientist.
Right.
There's at least 5 hormones that are happening, and so that means that she's 4 different women, in all honesty. I'm in the 3rd phase of my menstrual cycle. Like, there's 4 phases. I'm in number 3 right now. And a few days ago, I started being more emotional about things. Yesterday morning, I like was super sad and cried before I went to church. I woke up that way. Nothing happened.
Right.
Nothing happened. I just woke up and was like, "Boo!"
Right.
Right? And then I did that again in the afternoon, had a big old cry. Did anything happen in my life? No. And that was a total change from a few days before where everything's cool, right? It's not like stuff hasn't happened, but like
Right.
nothing specifically happened. And I know that when you get into phase 3, which is the luteal phase, which is the week before your period, there are hormonal changes that are happening that make it so that we're more aware of everything in our life that is irritating us. They've actually connected it to the hormones that are happening in the female body. It is not just like some made up, like, oh, she's being dramatic right now because she's about to have her period. Okay, so yeah, she's about to have her period, but she's being quote unquote dramatic or whatever words bros are using because her hormones are changing and she's noticing how you're being a dick right now and she's not ignoring it anymore. So she's
Exactly.
calling you out on your shit, but she's calling you out on your shit because she literally can't stand it. But the rest of the month, the hormones are different. And so she tolerates it better. It's just right now you're actually intolerable and she's telling you. You're
Right.
actually intolerable all the time when you do this.
Right.
And so that's just one change in one of the phases of how women are different every single day of their month. And then they cycle through it like multiple times in their life, obviously.
Right.
And so if the divine feminine is about kind of being in spirals and following your feelings, and then there's so much of the hormonal changes that are about experience that align with experiencing so many feelings. It's like interesting to look at it through that biological lens.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and there's people out there who talk about this who know more about the science than I do. um I can't remember their names right now, but if you want me to give you them later so that you can put them in the show notes, that
Sure.
might be helpful for people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's
So
just like the tip of the iceberg about scientific things related to female hormones that you could link to divine feminine.
right. Right. That's it's so interesting. It's
I
so
think it is.
interesting because big long pregnant pause here, but
I know I'm writing a note down and you're like contemplating.
I know I'm trying to think of how to say this, but one I don't know how to say this and not be offend anyone. Who cares? I'll just say it. A lot of times men will revert to, "Oh, that's just because you're being hormonal. That's not real. It's just hormonal." And I have just wanted actually to throat punch people when they say that because no, you're really feeling these things. And like you said, they've been stuffed for how long, however long. And you're like, finally, something pushes it out of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of silence that comes when you're like trying to figure out how to, well, okay, this is maybe a personal experience. I like to speak things clearly and kindly,
Hmm.
as someone with my background and training, even in my personal life. And I'm just a person who doesn't like to say whatever the F comes out of my mouth in a rude way.
Right.
Um, and so I try to be cautious. And sometimes that's hard when you're so upset about something, you
Right.
know? Um, and so other people like me maybe are holding it for a while, not knowing exactly how to tackle it. But even if you're a person who just shoots their mouth off, there can also be a lot of holding that happens with not speaking what you want to say just because of like culture and society and you don't know how to do it and there's not a lot of communication training in our world. Like you basically have to learn good communication skills from your family and a lot of families don't have them.
Right. And I can imagine a lot of shame would come with speaking what you're feeling too, if that's comes
Yes.
through
I
your
mean,
intergenerational family
stuff.
stuff.
Shame is a huge contributor to not speaking up because, gosh, shame is the thing that we would all like to avoid.
Right. Exactly.
We don't even necessarily recognize when we're experiencing shame because there's so many other emotions that come with it.
Mhm.
And then little protectors pop up, little pieces inside of us that have developed to like help us deflect, avoid, and little pieces of our personality to like protect ourselves from experiencing hardship,
Mhm.
um, all of those pop up, and so then we don't necessarily realize that it's even shame that's happening.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, and it controls so many lives.
yeah.
I was
But
speaking.
to go back to what your original point was
Okay.
about, like, people who are saying to women, well, what you're expressing right now because you're about to be on your period or you're on your period should be dismissed because you're hormonal.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, this can't possibly be true. You must be making it up right now. So it's like, how do you know I'm not feeling this way all of the time? That this dismissiveness, the dismissiveness of it is, well, it makes you feel irate,
It does.
you know?
And
Yeah.
it feels gaslit.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Um, and some people don't understand or respect that is a, like, why can't we listen to people all the time regardless of when they are in their cycle?
Mhm.
They don't understand how to do that.
Right.
Or maybe it's just a story they tell themselves so that they can ignore what's being said to them. I don't know.
Mhm. Wow.
I've never had a conversation with someone about that specific thing who is saying that, but like, hey, why do you believe that? Because I generally don't have males like that in my life.
I think they've just been taught, maybe.
Yeah.
Societal, "Oh, your mom's crazy because whatever."
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the Instagram account called Roe versus Bros?
No.
It's hilarious. It's like a late, you know how late night shows would go out on the streets with the microphone and ask people questions,
Yeah.
and then they only show the ones where the people don't know the answers?
Mhm.
So it's like that, except it's just this Instagram account, but it's all about asking men, bros. They're definitely bros that they're asking. It's not all men.
Right.
They definitely look like bros, about female bodies.
Uh-huh.
And they never know the answers. Of course, they're only going to show the ones where they don't know the answers, but it's
Right.
really funny and horrifying
Oh, I can imagine.
because you're like, how many ovaries does a woman have in their entire lifetime? And they don't know that women have two ovaries.
Right.
They don't know. They're
Or
like, "How many eggs does a woman have in her lifetime?" They're like, "I don't know, 10."
yeah, right, right. I read something really interesting the other day that just hit me, is that since women are born with the number of eggs that they're ever gonna have,
Yes,
your grandmother actually carried you when she was
I
pregnant with your
know.
mother.
That is mind-blowing.
Isn't
It's
that
like,
a mind
"Whoa!"
It was a mind blow, and it was, like, so comforting to me because my grandmother was my protector and my
Oh,
inspiration and everything in my life, and when I heard that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool."
you were like, "I was in my grandma too."
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what else that means? And this blew me away when I thought about it, I think a couple months ago, and I don't know why I hadn't realized this before. That means I was in my grandmother's womb with my sister.
Oh, wow, yes.
So my mother and my sister and I were all in my grandmother's womb together.
Wow.
I know.
And, I wonder the trauma my grandmother went through.
Keep going, you're getting there.
Yeah, it all adds to this intergenerational trauma because the trauma my grandmother
Yes.
went through added to my mother, and it had to have added to me and my brothers.
Yes. Okay. So the chemicals that are in our bodies, like the hormones that are in our bodies, one of them is cortisol. Do you know about
Yeah,
cortisol?
oh, too much.
Okay. Okay. So if your grandmother experienced a stressful experience during the pregnancy with your mother, that means that her body is going to have increased cortisol.
Mhm.
And too much cortisol for the baby or any human, but especially for a growing fetus, not good. And so that's getting put in the eggs as well.
Wow.
I know. And so there's all sorts of hormonal baths, kind of. And this is a part that I don't understand as thoroughly, so I can't give as many examples about it, but this is actually in the book that I recommended. It didn't start with you. So he talks about
Okay.
it better. But there's all these hormonal baths that kind of happen. And are they positive hormones? Are they stress hormones? Are they, I guess I'm just breaking it down into good and bad right now because I don't know any other way to say it because
Mhm.
I'm not skilled enough in it. But I think it's fascinating to contemplate that the life experiences of your grandmother that happened however many years ago are somehow shaping your eggs.
Still living and breathing today.
Yes. And that the in utero experiences matter because they change the chemical structures or the chemicals that are affecting the fetus and therefore the eggs and the reproductive organs inside the baby for both genders.
That's what I was
Because
just gonna ask. Is it can you probably I don't know if you can answer this or not, but I mean it's theoretically the same thing would happen with sperm.
because sperm is created more, has a quicker life cycle and is
Mhm.
created all of the time,
So
the
okay.
sperm that became you was created, you know, while your dad was an adult and
Right.
not inside his
Okay.
mother.
Yeah, right.
But that doesn't mean that the experiences that he had inside the womb of his mother, he still had chemical hormonal baths, for lack
Mhm.
of a better term. There's probably other sciencey terms for it, but he still experienced that, and I'm sure that it still influenced his epigenetics.
Mhm.
And there may be some stuff that happens to like how sperm is formed or whatever, but that's a big fat question mark. I don't know the answer to that,
Mhm.
but he still was affected by his experience in utero, and that affected who he became.
Right. I know one of the
In
things
addition, of course, to his life, but we're talking about while he was in a womb.
exactly. I one of my sons, I had interesting conversations with doctors and he's 38 now. When he was little and all this stuff was going on. And one of the questions was, did either of you do a lot of acid? Yeah, it wasn't me, but his birth dad did a lot of acid.
Yeah.
And the theory back then was and could be, I don't know because I don't read up on that, could be very well known but right now by everyone but me, that changed, genetically changed his sperm that was passed on then to my son, that is now suffering the effects, sort of like my daughter does with fetal alcohol, my adopted daughter with fetal alcohol effects.
Yeah. So if a person is living a certain lifestyle, whether or not that includes substances, what the men are doing will affect their sperm that they're making.
Hmm.
It will.
This is just like, things that this is such a powerful episode because there are things, you think about here and there, but now it's all packaged into one episode. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to watch this like several times to take this all in.
There's there's a lot of information out there, and I like to really go deep into things. Like when someone works with me, I like to go really deep into it.
Hmm.
And just over my life, I've just gathered these areas that intersect and overlap in interesting ways. I call them, like, it's like I have 4 deep wells, and I like talking about all of them.
Right, right.
Yeah. I've got
Exactly.
general mental health, I've got codependency, I've got spirituality stuff that I like talking a lot about, and divine masculine, divine feminine stuff.
Hmm.
And they all, to me, they all go together.
Well, it kind of reminds me of something my son says all the time. He said, there are no coincidences. Um, only mysteries of God or God's way of remaining anonymous, or I don't know something, but the way he says it, it kind of reminds me of that there are no coincidences. Everything is interrelated
Mm, mhm.
in one way or
Yeah.
another.
Yeah.
And what's scary is we don't know this stuff when we're having babies.
No, I mean, And in all honesty, the people who have a lot more trauma, like, there's just less chance to get that healing started because sometimes there's less resources available if there's been a lot of trauma experiences because you're maybe around a lot of people who also experience trauma.
Mhm.
And so there's less likely to get resources. And then everyone starts having kids maybe before they've done the healing. And
Mhm.
so it gets passed on, epigenetically.
Mhm.
And then of course there's other ways to pass it on in terms of how you're parenting and how
Yeah.
you're actually raising the child.
And then if
But
you've got things locked away in boxes until you are physically able to open them,
yeah,
you can't really change a lot.
yeah. The good thing now is that everyone has access to more information
Yes.
because internet and smartphones.
Right.
And the next generation that's coming up and the generation that's, young adults right now, they have access to so much information about mental health
Mhm.
that no one else has ever had before. And they can learn a lot just by looking for it on the internet. There's so
Exactly.
much out there, all these podcasts.
Yeah.
People can do a lot of healing work for free, even if they can't get themselves into therapy or aren't ready for it yet.
But they have to be very diligent about the sources that they're trusting.
I would agree with you.
Yeah. You know what really scared me, and this sort of touches on it and sort of doesn't, but I watched an advertisement last night for Apple's new virtual reality, I
Oh,
don't know what they
yeah.
call them,
I don't remember either.
and they're so isolated. It was really scary, but it was intriguing, and the techie part of me saying, "Oh, man, I wanna spend $3,500 and I want a pair of those." And then the other part of me, since all of this has gone on, is saying, "But look how you're isolating yourself from everyone else. You've got these glasses on, and you're immersed in your own universe." I don't know where I was going, but they're really cool, but they're really scary.
Like, just the concept of increased separation between humans.
Right. We have enough
Yeah. Were
divisiveness
they
now.
so I haven't really paid attention to them. Are they marketing them as, like, a way of life, or is they marketing them as a game?
Well, the way that it was like a way of life. One of the things that
Okay.
they were talking about is, okay, you're sitting there, they show this woman, she has them on, and her friend comes in, and they're saying, "Well, you still can be connected," and she's having a conversation with her friend about sushi, but she still has these goggles on, and then when she turns around, the apps are activated by your eyes, and then you do whatever in the air, and they're talking about, this is what really got me. You can video, it has a camera, and you can video in high definition things that are happening in moments, and you can take pictures. And then they're saying you can relive these moments because it's such a surrounding environment that you're in. It's like you're actually back in that moment. Now, part of me
Wow.
is very intrigued with that, and part of that scares the holy hell out of me.
I mean, yeah. There's just a lot of increased disconnection and people not knowing how to connect,
Mhm.
not remembering how to, but we are wired for connection.
Yeah.
We are wired to need connection. It's a biological imperative that we are in community.
Mhm.
We have to have it for our brains to grow appropriately in terms of legitimate human development.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
it doesn't go away just because we're an adult now. We still require it.
Oh, yes, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
My gosh, Vanessa. We're like at an hour and 15 minutes. We should probably wrap up. It's like we need to do this once a month or something. You've got so much information. And I love speaking with you because and when I was on your podcast, I mean, even then, well, I go down wormholes all the time, but our conversations just seem to evolve
Yeah.
very organically, very naturally and it all weaves back to the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Everything's connected.
Thank you, Charlie.
Oh my gosh. Yes, the person that introduced us, that was so random.
Oh, I
That he
know.
was like, "Hey, I know this lady."
Have you
You
ever
guys
had
should
him
meet.
on your podcast?
No, I have not had him on my podcast. I have a pretty narrow niche on my
You
podcast,
do. You
and I don't
do.
think he fits the niche. He fits a lot of niches, but not mine.
You know, I had asked him to consider being a co-host on a different podcast with me because I thought it would be fun to have like a kind of like a the Brits say a chat show, sort of a like fun hot topic podcast. And
Yes.
Charlie would be the perfect co-host for that.
He's so cool.
He is so cool. Charlie, you need to watch this episode. I'm going to send it
I
to you.
know, we're just complimenting you all the time, and everyone else is like, who's Charlie?
Who's Charlie? Charlie's like this really cool drummer and one of the few drummers that you can actually see through the guitar necks. They always capture his face when other drummers are just like, you have this guitar neck in their face. And his wife is just so sweet. She's so wonderful.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, so
She totally is.
awesome. Well, Vanessa,
Well,
thank
I'll come back whenever
you.
you want me to.
Okay, I would love it because there's so many topics I could go into with you, and it would just
Well,
be
thank you.
fun. Just be fun.
Fun.
Fun. Okay, so if you, why don't you tell us? Do you know your Instagram account off?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I know all my things.
Okay.
So the name of my business is Soul Amplified. That is the name of my Instagram account. I also have Facebook and LinkedIn, but I'm not there as much. I also have a podcast called the Soul Amplified Podcast, and we now have over 200 episodes on
Yay!
things relating to codependency, psychology, spirituality, and the divine feminine. So if you are interested in any of that, there are many episodes for you.
And some that I specifically will be searching for.
Yes. And then in August, I am having a day long retreat, and it's going to be on the divine feminine. And I don't have a lot of details on it yet. But if you follow me or get on my newsletter, which you can do through the Instagram link in bio,
Mhm.
I have a newsletter that I send out every Monday, and that'll keep you in the loop on what's happening and what I have going on. And then about a week ago from when this airs, I will have started a program called the Radiance Recipe Circle, and it's a 3-month program where we're going to dive into kind of all the divine feminine stuff that I talked about today. Um, and so you will have missed the first one, but if you want to join, you can just watch the recording of it, and then we'll pick back up, and you can be part of everything live
My
if that
gosh,
interests
you're
you.
just like
Yeah.
Superwoman. I love this.
Oh, thanks.
I love
And
it.
then the Radiance Recipe is 3 months long, so it'll go through mid-September.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely going to hook up with this.
Oh,
I like that.
okay.
You know, just on a side note, one of my friends posted, and I see this with you through this whole episode. I just keeps it's. I don't know what it is, but I see it. She posted a picture of herself in front of these neon butterfly wings.
Mm.
And I'm like, keep seeing these butterfly wings. She was just absolutely beautiful. She's that happy little penguin on Instagram. I think she only has 2 photos of, and that's the one that popped up. And I'm like, dang, I keep seeing those with Vanessa. So it's that energy.
I
It's that
I
energy.
really love wings. My logo has wings on it. It's a woman with big fairy wings.
Hmm.
Is the image that goes with my logo for Soul Amplified. So wings are one of my things, fairy wings.
Well, then that's what it is. Oh, I'm so excited. All right, Vanessa, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And
Thanks for having me.
oh, yes, thank you. It's just such an honor to have you on here. It's like I've known you forever.
Forever, forever.
Yes, if I could sing, I would. But we'll have to do this from time to time because it's just, I love it. I love it.
I'm down.
All right, me too. Thank you so
Okay.
much. And thank you, Charlie. And we'll let you get on with your day.
Okay.
Have a
Thanks.
great one,
Bye.
Vanessa. Thank you so much. Oh, did I tell you or did I tell you? Vanessa is amazing. I will have all of her information linked in the show notes below. You guys check her out. She's got some incredible things happening. You'll be able to see on her Instagram, and you can sign up for several things if you'd like. But get to know Vanessa. She is amazing. And whoever thought radiance coach. Just that term is so cool. It's so cool. So that's what I have today, guys. Have a freaking rockin' week, and I will see you on the next episode of Digging Through Dominoes, which is available on all podcast platforms, on its dedicated YouTube channel, and as a playlist on my main YouTube channel. I'll link everything below. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.